The entire court of Blackthorn gathered to watch the cursed bride die. They did not call it an execution. Executions required guilt, witnesses, and a blade clean enough to pretend mercy had entered the room. This was called a trial by beast. That made it sacred. That made the nobles lean over the stone railings with jeweled fingers and hungry eyes, pretending they had come for justice instead of blood. Seraphine Vale stood at the edge of the sacred wolf pit in torn bridal silk. Her wedding veil hung from one shoulder, ripped where a guard had dragged her across the throne hall. The white dress that had been forced onto her at dawn was stained with ash from the ritual braziers and red from the roses crushed beneath the court's boots. Her wrists were bound in silver cord. Her bare feet were cold against the black stone. Above her, the moon shone through the open ceiling, too bright and too cruel. Below her, something breathed in the dark. The sound rose from the pit, like winter dragging chains. Every wolf in the hall lowered its head. Even the strongest alphas standing beside the throne avoided looking into the pit for too long. They all knew what lived beneath the court. The beast of Blackthorn. The monster wolf that had torn apart 11 condemned traitors, 3 rival assassins, and 1 royal guard who had leaned too far over the rail during feeding. It was said to be cursed, mad, and older than mercy. Tonight, the court had decided Seraphine would be given to it. Alpha King Darius Blackthorn sat above her on the iron throne, carved from black antler and wolf bone. He wore dark armor beneath a cloak of midnight fur, one hand resting on the arm of the throne, the other clenched so tightly the rings on his fingers cut into his skin. His face was hard enough to frighten kings. Black hair, sharp cheekbones, pale grey eyes, a mouth that looked as if it had forgotten softness long ago. He had refused to marry her before the entire court. Not quietly, not privately, in front of every noble house, every priestess, every wolf envoy. He had looked at Seraphine in her bridal silk and said, "I will not bind my crown to a woman who carries death in her blood." The court had gasped. Then they had turned on her. Cursed bride, death-touched, bed omen. Seraphine had heard those words since childhood. Her first betrothed died before the wedding feast. Her second fell sick the day after touching her hand. Her third was found beneath a frozen river with black veins around his throat. None of them had loved her. None of them had known her. But every death became another chain around her name. Now Darius Blackthorn had become the 4th man promised to her, and he had chosen the pit instead. Lady Merwin Solis stood beside the throne in silver-blue silk, beautiful as frost under moonlight. Her golden hair was braided with pearl pins, her smile quiet and poisonous. The court called her the rightful lunar candidate. Pure blood, perfect wolf, no curse, no dead husbands behind her name. She looked down at Seraphine with pity sharp enough to cut skin. "Your Majesty," Merwin said softly, "the old law is clear. If a bride brings death to 3 promised bonds, the 4th, Alpha, has the right to surrender her to the beast before the curse reaches the crown." Seraphine lifted her eyes to Darius. For one dangerous second, she thought she saw something move beneath his coldness. Not guilt, fine, deep, hidden, and quickly buried. Then he looked away. That hurt more than the pit. A priestess stepped forward with a crescent blade. "Seraphine Vale, cursed bride of 3 graves, rejected by the Alpha King. You are offered to the sacred beast below. If the beast devours you, the curse dies with you. If the beast refuses you, the moon may speak." A cruel laugh moved through the court. Everyone knew the beast never refused blood. The guards cut the silver cord from Seraphine's wrists only to shove her toward the edge. Loose stone crumbled beneath her toes and vanished into the darkness below. She heard it fall for a long time. Before it struck the ground, her stomach turned cold. Darius stood suddenly. The entire court fell silent. Merwin's head turned sharply toward him. Seraphine looked up. The Alpha King's face was stone, but his eyes were fixed on her now with a violence that did not match his sentence. His wolf should have been visible behind his gaze. Every true Alpha carried that second presence. But Darius's eyes were strangely hollow, as if something had been carved out of him and hidden elsewhere. The breath from the pit rose again. This time, Darius flinched. Only Seraphine saw it. Merwin saw Seraphine seeing it. Her smile vanished. "Proceed," Merwin said. The guards pushed. Seraphine fell. The court disappeared above her, in a blur of moonlight. Faces, stone, and screams she could not tell belonged to others, or to herself. Cold air tore through her hair. Her body struck the pit floor hard enough to drive the breath from her lungs. Pain burst through her shoulder. For several seconds, she could not move. Then, the darkness moved. A growl rolled toward her. Seraphine forced herself onto one elbow. The beast stepped from the shadows. It was enormous, too large for any natural wolf. Its black fur was matted with old blood and silver scars. One ear was torn. Its muzzle was broad and brutal, its claws long enough to split bone. Chains hung broken from its neck, not holding it anymore, only proving that someone had once tried. Its eyes glowed pale gray. Darius' eyes. Seraphine stopped breathing. Above the pit, the court waited. The monster came closer. Every instinct told her to crawl back, to scream, to beg the moon for a death that would not hurt for long. But she had begged before. As a child, when servants refused to touch her. As a girl, when mothers pulled their sons away. As a bride, when every dead man's name was tied around her throat. Begging had never saved her, so Seraphine lifted her chin, trembling, broken, and furious. "If you are going to kill me," she whispered, "then do it as yourself, not as their weapon." The beast stopped. A sound passed through it. Nordhunger. Recognition. The court above murmured. Seraphine saw blood running down one of the beast's front legs. Fresh. Hidden beneath the black fur. Without thinking, she reached toward it. The beast snarled. She froze. Then, slowly, it lowered its head. Seraphine's shaking fingers touched the wound. The moment her skin met its blood, the pit filled with silver fire. The beast shuddered violently. Seraphine cried out as heat rushed through her palm, not burning, but opening something beneath her skin. A mark appeared at her wrist. A black wolf crown wrapped in moon-white thorns. Above, the court screamed. Darius staggered against the throne rail. Marvin Ventwhite. The monster wolf stepped closer, towering over Seraphine. Its jaws parted. The entire court held its breath, waiting for teeth. Instead, the beast pressed its scarred forehead to her hand. A voice entered her mind, rough, ancient, and broken. Mate. Seraphine's heart stopped. High above the pit, Alpha King Darius Blackthorn stared down at her as if the ground had split beneath his crown, and the monster everyone feared bowed to the cursed bride. The sacred wolf pit went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that did not belong to living things. Seraphine knelt on the cold stone floor, with her hand still pressed against the beast's bloodied forehead, her torn bridal silk pooling around her knees like a ruined vow. The mark on her wrist burned black and silver beneath her skin, a wolf crown wrapped in moon-white thorns. It pulsed once, then again, each beat answering the monster's breath. Mate. The word still echoed inside her skull. Above the pit, the court stared down at her, with faces drained of color. No one laughed now. No one called her cursed. The beast had not killed her. Worse, it had chosen her. Alpha King Darius Blackthorn stood at the railing, one hand gripping the carved stone so hard it cracked beneath his fingers. His pale gray eyes were fixed on the mark burning around Seraphine's wrist, and for the first time since she had been dragged into his court, he looked afraid. Not of her, of what she had touched. Lady Merwin Solis recovered before anyone else. "It is a trick." Her voice sliced through the silence, too sharp, too fast. The beast's head lifted. A low growl rose from its chest. Merwin stepped back despite herself. Seraphine felt the sound under her palm. It was not only rage, it was pain. Deep, old, layered pain. The kind that had been locked away so long it had forgotten the shape of release. She looked into the beast's grey eyes and saw something impossible there. A man, a memory, a crown. Darius. Her breath caught. The beast was not simply like him. The beast was him, not his wolf beside him, not his spirit shadow, not his familiar. Something far worse. Something stolen from his own soul and thrown into the pit. Seraphine looked up at the Alpha King. He was still above her, still wearing his crown, still wrapped in black armor and cold authority. But now, she saw what had seemed wrong from the beginning. His eyes had power, but no wolf behind them. His body held command, but no living beast answered beneath his skin. The monster below had Darius's wolf. Or maybe it was the part of Darius that had been cut away. The realization struck her harder than the fall. "You knew," she whispered. Darius heard her, even from above. His face changed. "No," he said. The word was almost soundless, but the pit carried it. Merwin's hand tightened around the silver rail. "Your Majesty, do not answer her. The curse is speaking through the beast." Seraphine turned toward Merwin. The false lunar candidate stood pale and perfect beside the throne, but her eyes were no longer calm. They were fixed on Seraphine's wrist, with hatred so bright it looked like fear. "You knew," Seraphine said again, but this time she was not speaking to Darius. Merwin's smile returned slowly. "I know a cursed bride when I see one." The beast lunged. Not at Seraphine. Upward. It slammed against the pit wall with enough force to shake dust from the ceiling. Nobles screamed and pulled back from the rail. Guards rushed forward with silver spears. Darius lifted one hand. "Halt." The guards froze. The beast's claws carved deep lines into the stone, but it did not climb. It stared at Merwin, lips peeled back, every scar across its body glowing faintly. Seraphine stood unsteadily. Pain shot through her ankle, but she forced herself upright. The beast immediately shifted closer, placing its enormous body between her and the spears above. Protective, possessive, but not like a captor, like something that had waited too long to find her and did not know how not to guard. A priestess near Merwin raised her crescent blade. "The beast has been corrupted. The bride must be destroyed before the mark roots." Darius turned his head slowly. "Destroyed?" he repeated. The priestess swallowed. Merwin stepped in before the fear spread. "Mercy, your Majesty. If the mark is false, it will kill you. If the beast has named her mate, then the curse has found a path to the crown. We must end this now." Darius looked down into the pit, at Seraphine, at the beast, at the mark. For one terrible second, Seraphine thought he would do it, not because he wanted her dead, but because kings were taught to kill mysteries before they became wars. Then the beast pressed its side against her, and Seraphine felt its wound open under her hand. A vision flashed. Darius, kneeling in a moonlit chamber, younger, shirt torn open, black chains wrapped around his chest. Merwin, in white ritual robes, crying beautifully, while priestesses carved a silver blade through the air. A monstrous black wolf being pulled from Darius's body, while he screamed without sound. Merwin whispering, "If he keeps the beast, he will never choose me." The vision vanished. Seraphine gasped. Darius saw her face. "What did you see?" Marvin? Then still. Seraphine looked at the false Luna. then at the king who had rejected her, then at the beast whose blood still warmed her palm. She could say nothing and live a few more minutes, or she could speak and become the center of the court's fear. She was tired of surviving by silence. "They split you," she said. The court went cold. Darius' face lost all color. Seraphine lifted her shaking hand, showing the mark on her wrist. "Your wolf did not become a monster. They made him one." Merwin's voice cracked. "Lies." The beast roared. The sound was not animal now. It was testimony. The mark around Seraphine's wrist flared, and every torch in the pit burned silver. Along the walls below, old runes appeared hidden beneath layers of blood and soot. Names, dates, ritual marks. The sacred pit was not a place of judgment. It was a prison. Seraphine turned slowly, reading what her blood somehow understood. "Not cursed brides," she whispered. Darius leaned over the rail. "What?" Her voice rose, shaking but clear. This pit was used for women the beast recognized. Women who might have exposed the stolen lunar rite. The court erupted. Merwin shouted for silence, but it was too late. The beast lowered its head beside Seraphine, and she saw them then faint shapes in the stone. Bridal veils, broken rings. Names scratched into the pit wall by dying hands. Her first 3 betrothed had died near her, but perhaps they had not died because of her. Perhaps they had died because they came too close to learning what she was. Seraphine looked up at Merwin. "You called me cursed because men died after touching my hand," she said. "But they died after asking questions about the mark hidden in my blood." Merwin's beauty hardened into something ugly. Darius drew his sword. "Open the pit," he commanded. No one moved. He turned on the guards. "Open it." Merwin grabbed his arm. "If you bring her out, the court will see you choosing a death-marked woman over your own Luna." Darius looked at her hand on him, then at her face. "You are not my Luna." The words hit the court like thunder. Merwin's hand fell away. Below, the beast went still. Seraphine felt the broken bond between man and wolf stretch across the pit, not healed, not whole, but awake. Darius stared down at her with fury, suspicion, guilt, and something more dangerous beneath all 3. Need. The iron gate at the base of the pit groaned open. Seraphine did not move. The beast stood in front of her, blocking the passage. Darius descended the stone stairs alone. Every guard shouted after him. Merwin screamed his name. He ignored them all. When he reached the pit floor, the beast turned on him with bared teeth. Darius stopped. For the first time, king and monster faced each other in the same room. Seraphine stood between them, trembling. Darius looked at the beast as if looking at his own grave. Then he looked at Seraphine. "What are you?" he asked. She almost laughed. After all of it, still that question. "I am the bride you sent to die," she said. The mark on her wrist burned brighter. The beast lowered its massive head again, not to her this time, but between her and Darius. A voice entered both their minds. Not curse, mate. Then the pit walls split open behind them, revealing a hidden chamber filled with torn bridal veils. The hidden chamber behind the pit smelled of old silk, cold stone, and death. No one had bothered to mourn. Seraphine stood between the Alpha King and the beast, staring into the darkness beyond the split wall. Torn bridal veils hung from iron hooks. Some were yellowed with age. Some still carried pearls. Some had names stitched into the hems with silver thread. The sight turned her blood cold. These were not relics. They were records. Darius stepped past her, sword raised, but the beast blocked him with one massive shoulder. The king froze. A growl rolled through the pit. Seraphine understood before he did. The beast was not stopping him from entering. It was warning him not to go first, because the chamber was not built to trap monsters. It was built to trap brides. Seraphine lifted her torn dress and stepped through the opening. Seraphine, Darius said. She did not stop. The sound of her name in his voice was different now. Not command. Not accusation. Fear. He had no right to fear for her after throwing her into the pit, but the sound still moved through her like a blade warmed over flame. Inside the chamber, moonlight leaked through cracks in the ceiling. The walls were carved with old vows, all written in the same ritual hand. Bride, refused. Bride, tested. Bride, consumed. Bride, forgotten. Seraphine's breath shook. At the far wall stood a stone altar covered in broken rings. Dozens of them. Wedding rings, binding rings, lunar rings. Some split in half, some melted, some darkened with old blood. Above them, carved into black stone, was the mark now burning around her wrist, a wolf crown wrapped in moon-white thorns. Darius entered behind her. The beast followed, lowering its head to fit through the broken wall. The chamber seemed too small for all three of them, too full of things that should never have been hidden. Seraphine touched one veil with trembling fingers. A name shimmered in the fabric. Elowen Mar. The moment she touched it, the room changed. A memory burst around them. A young bride in white stood where Seraphine stood now, shaking before the beast pit. She was not screaming. She was holding out her hand to the monster below. The beast had not attacked her. It had lowered its head, just as it had done for Seraphine. Then Merwin's mother, Lady Isolde Solis, appeared in the vision, younger and cold-eyed, whispering to the priestess beside her, "If the beast marks another bride, the lunar rite fails. Push her before the king sees." The vision flashed. The bride fell. The beast roared. Silver spears descended from above. The memory shattered. Seraphine stumbled back, hand over her mouth. Darius's face had gone grey. "That was before my reign," he said. The beast snarled. "Not excuse." The voice growled inside them. Darius flinched. The word landed exactly where it should. Seraphine turned toward him. "How many?" He looked at the veils, the rings, the names. "I do not know." "That is not enough." His jaw tightened. No. For once, he did not defend the throne. For once, he looked at the horror beneath his court and did not try to make it smaller. Another veil began to glow, then another. Names appeared around the chamber, waking in the stone, as if Seraphine's mark had called them back. Celia Thorne, Amara Vey, Leora Dusk, Evelyn Crow. Brides, all cursed, all sent to the pit, all erased. Seraphine understood the shape of it now. The curse was not death following her. It was recognition. Every woman marked by the thorned wolf crown had been a possible true mate to the beast, the severed wolf part of the Alpha King's bloodline. Every time the beast recognized a bride, the Solis women and the old priestesses destroyed her to protect the false lunar rite. And Merwin had tried to do the same tonight. A sound came from the pit above. Applause. Slow. Mocking. Seraphine turned. Lady Merwin stood at the broken wall, with 3 priestesses behind her, each holding a silver spear. Her face was pale, but her smile was perfect again. "How touching," Merwin said. "The cursed bride finds the graves of other cursed brides, and mistakes herself for special." Darius stepped forward, sword lifted. The priestesses aimed their spears at Seraphine. The beast moved faster. It slammed one paw before her, shielding her body. Merwin's eyes flashed with hatred. "There it is. The stolen beast, choosing again." Darius's voice was deadly. "What did your house do?" Merwin laughed softly. "What your house begged us to do. Your father feared the beast. Your council feared the mate bond. My mother gave them a solution." Seraphine looked at Darius. He did not look away. Merwin continued, each word poison dressed as truth. "The Alpha King cannot rule if his wolf chooses women the court cannot control. So the beast was separated. The man kept the crown. The monster kept the mate instinct, and every bride it recognized was declared cursed and fed back to the pit. The chamber went colder. Darius's sword lowered a fraction, not from weakness, but from horror. Seraphine felt the beast trembling beside her, not with fear, with rage held back by a bond it barely understood. Merwin's Chaza slid to Seraphine's wrist. And then there is you, the last thorn-marked bride, the one my mother failed to find before the wedding contracts began. 3 men died because they discovered your mark, not because you cursed them, because they tried to warn you. Seraphine's knees nearly gave. Her dead betrotheds, the men whose names had been tied around her throat like proof of evil. They had not died from touching her. They had died for trying to save her. Merwin smiled. Now you know. Does truth feel better than ignorance? Seraphine looked at the veils, at the rings, at the beast, at Darius, the king who had refused her, because he had been taught to fear the part of himself that knew her. No, she whispered. It feels like fire. The mark on her wrist ignited. The veils rose from the walls. Every torn bride's veil lifted into the air, glowing silver white in the darkness. The priestesses screamed. The beast roared. Darius reached for Seraphine, then stopped himself, as if remembering she had already been handled enough by hands that claimed necessity. Merwin's smile vanished. The veils circled Seraphine like ghosts, not attacking, witnessing. 100 dead brides whispered one word through the chamber. Mate. The beast lowered its head beside Seraphine. Darius stared at her, no longer hiding the devastation in his face. Above them, the court began to shout. The pit wall cracked wider, and a hidden chamber opened beneath the throne hall for every noble to see. The hidden chamber tore open beneath the throne hall like a wound finally refusing to stay covered. Stone split. Silver light surged upward. The veils of the dead brides rose through the cracked floor, spinning into the royal court above like pale ghosts. Nobles screamed and stumbled back from the railings. Priestesses dropped their spears. The old moon banners hanging behind the throne snapped violently, though no wind entered the hall. Seraphine stood below with the beast beside her, the mark on her wrist burning black and silver. For the first time, the court saw what had been hidden under their sacred pit. The veils, the rings, the names carved into stone. Darius stepped out of the broken chamber first, sword in hand, his face colder than the iron throne above him. The beast followed at his side, too large for the passage, shoulders scraping stone, pale grey eyes burning with rage. Seraphine came last, barefoot in torn bridal silk, surrounded by the floating veils of women the court had called cursed and erased. No one laughed now. Lady Merwin stood at the edge of the pit, pale with fury. "Do not look at her," she shouted to the court. "This is a death glamour. The cursed bride is using the beast to twist your minds." One of the veils flew toward her. Merwin flinched. The veil stopped inches from her face and unfolded in the air. A name glowed across the torn hem. Elowen Mar. A noblewoman in the eastern gallery gasped. That was my aunt. The court turned toward her. The woman's face crumpled. They said she ran before the wedding. They said she shamed us. The veil trembled. A memory opened in the air. Elowen, young and terrified, being dragged to the pit while Lady Isolde Solis watched from above. The beast below did not attack. It bowed its head. Then silver spears rained down before the Alpha King of that time could descend. The memory vanished. The court erupted. Another veil opened. Then another. Bride after bride. Name after name. Each woman accused of carrying death. Each woman recognized by the beast. Each woman silenced before the court could understand why. Seraphine could barely breathe. She had thought herself alone, inside a curse. Instead, she was the latest body placed in an old machine. Darius turned toward Merwin. "How many?" Merwin's perfect face hardened. Enough to preserve the crown. The answer struck the hall silent. Darius moved toward her, but the beast stepped first. One enormous paw landed on the black stone, claws cracking the floor. Merwin lifted her chin. "Careful, Your Majesty. If the beast kills me, the court will see the cursed bride's influence." Seraphine understood the trap. If the beast tore Merwin apart, every lie would survive inside fear. The court would remember blood, not truth. The dead brides would become monsters. Seraphine would become the curse again. She stepped forward. The beast growled, warning her back. She placed one shaking hand against its scarred shoulder. No. The beast turned its massive head toward her. Not command, she thought. Please. The beast held still. Darius saw it. The whole court saw it. The monster that had slaughtered every condemned soul thrown into the pit stopped because the cursed bride touched him gently. Seraphine faced Merwin. "You killed my betrotheds," she said. Merwin's eyes gleamed. "They were weak men who asked dangerous questions. They died trying to warn me. They died because they chose a cursed girl over court order." The mark on Seraphine's wrist burned hotter. The dead veils circled faster. Darius's voice came low and lethal. "You will stand trial." Merwin smiled. "By whose law?" "Yours. You are half a king. Your wolf is rotting in the pit." The court sucked in a breath. Darius went still. There it was. The truth spoken before everyone. The Alpha King was incomplete. The beast was not a monster beneath his rule. It was the severed wolf soul his own court had locked away to make him easier to control. Merwin turned to the nobles. "Look at him. Look at your king. The man has no wolf inside him. The beast below carries the mate instinct, the hunger, the old blackthorn power. If he joins with it again, he will be uncontrollable. If the cursed bride commands it, she commands him." Fear moved through the court. Seraphine felt it shift toward her. Darius did too. For one terrible moment, he stood between two deaths. Reclaim the beast, and become what the court feared, or reject it, and remain the hollow king they could control. Merwin saw his hesitation and struck harder. "Choose, Darius. Crown or curse, court or bride, throne or beast." The beast lowered its head, breathing hard. Seraphine looked at Darius. He had sent her to die. He had watched her fall. But now she saw the wound behind it. A king raised to fear his own soul. A man taught that power meant cutting away anything wild enough to choose freely. Still, his pain did not erase hers. "You do not get to choose me to save yourself," she said. Darius's eyes snapped to hers. The court froze. Seraphine stepped closer, her voice trembling, but clear. "If the beast is yours, then face him because he is yours. Not because he called me mate. Not because you need me to make you whole." Something changed in Darius's face. The beast watched him. The veils watched him. The entire court watched him. Slowly, Darius lowered his sword. Then he stepped down into the pit. "Alone." The beast turned toward him with bared teeth. Darius stopped several feet away and opened his empty hand. "I do not command you," he said. The words shook the hall harder than any roar. Merwin screamed. "No." Darius kept his eyes on the beast. "I do not command you. I do not cage you. I do not call you monster for surviving what they did to us." The beast's growl faltered. Darius's voice broke, but he did not stop. "If you return by choice. If you refuse, then I will stand before this court as the king who let them cut his wolf away and lied by silence." The beast stared at him. Then it looked at Seraphine. She did not move. She did not beg. Did not command. Did not offer herself as bridge or sacrifice. The beast took one step toward Darius, then another. Merwin grabbed a silver spear from a priestess and hurled it toward Seraphine. The beast turned too late. Darius moved first. He crossed the pit in a blur, and caught the spear through his own side before it reached her. Seraphine screamed his name. Blood spilled black-red over his armor. The beast roared. And this time, every wolf in the kingdom heard the Alpha King's missing soul answer. The spear did not kill Darius. That almost made it worse. It held him upright. For one terrible second. Silver point buried through his side, black-red blood sliding down his armor and falling into the sacred pit, where his severed wolf soul stood frozen before him. The entire throne hall stopped breathing. Even Merwin's scream died in her throat. Then, Darius dropped to one knee. Seraphine ran before fear could stop her. The beast moved too, massive claws scraping stone. But he did not reach Darius first. He stopped when Seraphine fell beside the Alpha King and pressed both hands against the wound, her bridal silk soaked beneath her palms. The mark around her wrist burned so fiercely it lit the pit walls. Darius looked at her through pain. "Are you hurt?" The question shattered something in her. He was bleeding because he had taken the spear meant for her, and still he asked if she was hurt. Seraphine's voice trembled. "You sent me here to die." His eyes closed once. "Yes, you refused me before the whole court." "Yes, you believed them." His jaw tightened. "I chose to believe what made me less afraid." The answer hurt, because it was honest. Above them, Merwin regained her voice. "Do you see?" she shouted to the court. "The cursed bride brings death, even when the king protects her. The spear was thrown by my hand, but the curse guided it." Seraphine looked up slowly. Something cold settled inside her. Not power. Not yet. Clarity. "You threw the spear," she said. Merwin smiled. "And he bled for you. That is what cursed women do. They make kings forget kingdoms." The beast snarled, but Seraphine lifted one bloody hand toward him. "Wait." The beast obeyed. The court saw it. Merwin saw it too, and fear flashed across her face. Seraphine turned back to Darius. "Can you stand?" His mouth curved faintly, bitter with pain. "That depends on whether standing is required." "Yes." Then, yes. She helped him rise. The beast came close on his other side, not touching him, but near enough that its shadow covered both of them. For one impossible moment, the cursed bride, the wounded king, and the monster wolf stood together at the bottom of the pit, while the court watched from above. The dead veils circled them like pale moons. Seraphine lifted her marked wrist. The thorned wolf crown burned brighter. "Show them," she whispered. The beast lowered its scarred head to her hand. The pit walls ignited with memory. This time, the court saw Merwin clearly not as a child, not as someone obeying an old family custom, but as a grown woman standing beside the priestesses, signing the death order for Seraphine's third betrothed. The man had discovered a hidden chamber under the pit. He had written a letter warning Seraphine that her curse was a lie. Merwin took the letter, smiled, and ordered him silenced before the wedding contract could be broken. The memory shifted. Seraphine's second betrothed. Then her first, both killed not by her touch, not by death in her blood, but by soulless blades and priestess poison because they had come too close to the truth. The court erupted. Marvin's mask cracked. "Lies," the veils answered. Every dead bride's name flared across the air. Every broken ring on the altar below glowed. The pit itself had become witness, and the monster wolf standing beside Seraphine was no longer a beast to fear, but the living proof of the court's old crime. Darius pulled the spear from his side with a hard breath and threw it onto the stone. The silver point cracked. His blood touched the pit floor. The beast shuddered. Darius shuddered too. A black line of moonlight stretched between them. Seraphine felt the bond before she understood it. Man and wolf, split apart by ritual, now reaching for each other through pain. The beast had not returned when Darius begged. It had not returned when the court feared. It had not returned when Merwin exposed him. It answered when Darius bled to protect what the beast had chosen. Darius looked at the monster. "I will not force you," he said, voice strained. "But I will not let them use you again." The beast stepped closer. Seraphine moved back. Not because she was afraid, because this was not hers to control. The beast pressed its forehead to Darius's chest. The impact brought the king to both knees. Black fire burst through the pit, wrapping man and wolf in one furious storm. The court screamed. Merwin shouted for the priestesses to strike, but no one moved. They were watching the impossible. The monster they had feared folding back into the king they had controlled. Darius roared. The sound became a wolf howl. When the fire died, he knelt alone. No beast stood beside him. But his eyes had changed. They were no longer hollow. Behind them, something ancient, scarred and alive, looked back at the court. Seraphine could barely breathe. Darius rose slowly. One hand pressed to his wounded side, the other clenched around nothing. His wolf had returned, but not fully healed. The silver scars remained faintly across his throat and wrists, glowing under his skin like old chains. He looked up at Merwin. This time, the court felt the Alpha King's full wolf answer. Every noble lowered their head. Marvin did not. She backed away. Darius's voice filled the hall. "Lady Merwin Solis, you are stripped of Luna claim." Merwin's eyes burned. "You choose the cursed bride?" Darius looked at Seraphine. Then, to the shock of every noble watching, he did not answer for her. He said, "I choose truth over the lie that made me king." The mark on Seraphine's wrist flared. The dead veils dropped from the air and formed a path from the pit to the throne steps. Seraphine understood. This was no longer about being saved. It was about walking out where every cursed bride before her had died. Darius held out his hand, then stopped himself before touching her. A question, not a claim. Seraphine looked at the hand, then at the court, then at Merwin, standing pale beside the throne. She placed her hand in his. Together, they climbed from the wolf pit, and with every step, the names of the dead brides burned into the marble behind them. Seraphine had never climbed stairs that felt like judgment. Each step from the wolf pit to the throne hall carried her past the place where every bride before her had vanished. The dead veils drifted beside her, pale and silent, while the names of the murdered women burned into the black marble behind her feet. Elowen Mar, Celia Thorne, Amara Vey, Leora Dusk, Eveline Crow. More names followed, too many for the court to pretend the pit had ever been sacred. Darius walked beside her, wounded but upright. His blood darkened his armor, yet his hand remained steady around hers. Not gripping, not dragging, holding only as long as she allowed. His wolf was back inside him now, but not quietly. Seraphine could feel it under his skin, scarred, furious, watching the court through his pale gray eyes. No one cheered. They were too afraid. That suited Seraphine. She did not want applause from people who had leaned over the rail to watch her die. At the top of the pit, Merwin stood before the throne, surrounded by priestesses and loyal guards. Her face was white, but her chin remained high. A woman like her did not know how to look guilty. She only knew how to look betrayed by consequence. "You are making a mistake," Merwin said to Darius. "The court is frightened now. The dead always frighten the living. But when dawn comes, they will remember what she is. 3 dead betrotheds, a cursed bride, a woman whose mark woke the monster." Seraphine looked at her. "No. They will remember who killed them." Merwin's eyes sharpened. "Can you prove every death?" The question was a trap, not because Seraphine lacked proof. Because Merwin wanted to turn the night into courtroom dust questions, delays, testimony, arguments over dead men whose mouths could no longer speak. She wanted truth made slow enough that fear could catch up. The mark on Seraphine's wrist burned. The veils behind her lifted again. One ring rolled from the pit and struck the throne steps. Then another. Then dozens. Each broken wedding ring rolled across the marble until they formed a circle around Merwin's feet. The court watched in horror. Darius's voice was low. "The dead are answering." Merwin's smile faltered for the first time. A veil brushed Seraphine's shoulder, and another memory opened above the hall. Her first betrothed, Lord Cale Varin, sitting by candlelight with trembling hands, writing a letter. He had discovered that every woman marked with the thorned wolf crown had disappeared before her wedding. He had planned to take Seraphine away before the contract was sealed. Then a soulless guard entered the room. The memory ended before the blade fell. Another veil opened, her second betrothed drinking wine at Merwin's table. His throat tightening, Merwin watching calmly as he reached for the hidden note in his sleeve. Another, her third betrothed standing outside the wolf pit chamber, whispering to a priestess, "She is not cursed. The pit is." Then Merwin's hand appeared behind him with a silver dagger. The court saw enough. Seraphine stood very still, feeling grief arrive late and heavy. She had never loved those men, not truly. She had barely known them, but they had died trying to warn her, and she had spent years wearing their deaths as shame, while their murderers stood in silk beside thrones. A noble lord in the western gallery backed away from Merwin. "You killed Varin?" Merwin's eyes flashed. He was going to break a royal contract. "He was my son," the lord whispered. Silence collapsed over the hall. The old man's face twisted not with politics, not with court calculation, but with raw father's grief. He stepped toward the rail. "You, let us bury him as if her touch had poisoned him." Merwin said nothing. That nothing condemned her. The priestesses began to shift away from her. Darius noticed. So did Marvin. Her hand shot out. She seized the nearest priestess by the throat and dragged her forward, pressing a crescent blade beneath the woman's chin. "Take one more step away from me, and I open her." Darius moved. Seraphine stopped him with one word. "No?" He froze, breath harsh. Merwin laughed. How quickly the cursed bride learns to command a king. Seraphine released Darius's hand and walked forward alone. Darius's wolf growled inside him, but he did not stop her. Good. She was tired of men deciding whether she was allowed near danger when danger had been sleeping under her name for years. Merwin watched her approach. "Do you think your mark makes you powerful?" "No." "Then why come closer?" Seraphine stopped just beyond the ring of broken wedding bands. "Because you are still hiding behind another woman's throat." The priestess in Merwin's grip began to cry. Merwin tightened the blade. "One more step." Seraphine did not move her feet. She lifted her marked wrist instead. The thorned wolf crown burned black and silver. The broken rings at Merwin's feet began to spin. Merwin looked down too late. Each ring rose from the floor and opened like a tiny silver mouth. From them came voices, men's voices, brides' voices, some weak, some furious, all dead. Not curse, murder, not beast, prison, not Luna, thief. The word thief struck Marvin hardest. Her perfect face broke. She shoved the priestess away and lunged at Seraphine with the crescent blade. Darius shouted her name, but Seraphine did not step back. The blade reached her chest and stopped. The beast inside Darius roared through the hall, but it was not his wolf that stopped the knife. It was the dead brides. Their veils wrapped around Merwin's wrist, arm, throat, and waist, pulling her backward into the circle of broken rings. She screamed, slashing wildly, but the silk did not tear. The women she had condemned held her before the court, pale veils tightening like judgment. Seraphine stood inches away, shaking. Merwin spat at her feet. "Kill me, then. Prove you are the curse." Seraphine's eyes burned. For 1 second, she wanted to. She wanted every dead bride to drag Merwin into the pit and let her hear the beast breathe in the dark. She wanted the court to watch fear enter the woman who had fed so many others to it. But then she looked at the nobles, the priestesses, the gods, the dead Veils. Darius, bleeding beside the throne. If Merwin died here, she would become another story the court could twist. Seraphine lowered her hand. "No," she said. "You will live long enough to name every bride." Merwin's face changed. Death, she had been ready for. Witness terrified her. Darius stepped beside Seraphine, his voice carrying through the hall. "Lady Merwin Solus, you are stripped of Luna claim, noble privilege, and court protection. You will stand public trial for the murder of the thorn-marked brides, the separation of my wolf, and treason against the Blackthorn crown." Merwin laughed, but it shook. "Your crown? The court will never follow a king whose monster chose a cursed woman." Darius looked at Seraphine. For a moment, the hall waited for him to claim her, to name her Luna, to turn the public reversal into possession. He did not. "Seraphine Veil owes this crown nothing," he said. "Not forgiveness, not loyalty, not her hand, not her mark. If she stays, it will be by choice. If she leaves under my protection." The words struck Seraphine harder than any vow, because he could have used the mate mark. He chose not to. The dead veils lowered around her, soft as breath. Then the pit beneath them groaned. The beast was gone from below, but the chamber had one last secret to surrender. The black stone split open at the center of the throne hall, revealing a sealed stairway descending deeper than the pit, marked with the same thorned wolf crown burning on Seraphine's wrist. A cold wind rose from beneath it. The dead brides whispered together. First bride. Seraphine looked down. Darius's face darkened. "What is below?" From the sealed stairway came a woman's voice, ancient and furious, the one they stole the right from. The sealed stairway breathed cold into the throne hall. Not winter cold, grave cold. The kind that came from stone left unopened too long, from names buried beneath law, from women who died with their mouths full of truth and no court willing to hear it. The dead veils trembled around Seraphine, then drifted toward the stairway, as if pulled by a memory older than their own murders. First bride. The whisper moved through the hall again. First bride. Seraphine stood at the edge of the opening, the thorned wolf crown burning around her wrist. Darius came beside her, wounded but steady, his wolf finally alive behind his eyes. He did not reach for her this time. He only looked into the dark below, sword low, jaw hard. Merwin was still bound in veils behind them, pale now, no longer beautiful in the way the court had trusted. "Do not go down there," she said. Seraphine turned slowly. "Why?" For the first time, Merwin had no polished answer. That was answer enough. Darius looked at the guards. "Hold her." The veils tightened before the guards could move. Merwin gasped, trapped inside the silk of every bride her house had sent to die. Seraphine stepped onto the first stair. Darius followed. The stairway descended beneath the wolf pit, deeper than the chamber of veils, deeper than the old blood in the stones. The air smelled of iron, moon water, and black roses. On the walls, carved wolf crowns appeared again and again, each one wrapped in thorns. Seraphine touched one carving lightly, and pain flashed through her wrist. The mark recognized this place. At the bottom stood a circular chamber with no windows and no throne. Only a stone altar at the center, surrounded by broken silver chains. On the altar lay a crown. Not the Alpha crown, a Luna crown, blackened. Split down the center, still glowing faintly with moon-white fire. Beside it stood a woman made of shadow and silver bones. She was not alive, not fully dead either. Her hair floated around her like smoke under water. Her eyes were pale and furious. Around her wrists were the first thorns, carved deep into skin that no longer bled. Darius raised his sword. The woman laughed, still pointing blades at brides. Blackthorn King? Seraphine stepped forward. Who are you? The woman's gaze moved to her wrist. The fury in her face changed. Not softened, focused. I was Isolde Blackthorn, she said, first Luna of the pit. First mate of the beast they cut from the king. First woman they called cursed when the wolf chose me instead of the court's chosen bride. Darius went still. Blackthorn, he said. The woman looked at him with contempt. Your bloodline did not begin as kings. It began as thieves who stole a wolf from a woman and called the wound a crown. The chamber shook. Seraphine's heart pounded. They stole the right from you. They stole more than that. Isolde touched the broken Luna crown. The first Alpha and his council feared the mate bond because it gave the wolf a choice the throne could not command. So they split the king from his beast and made the soulless women guardians of the false right. Every generation, when the beast recognized a bride outside their control, they threw her into the pit and called her death-marked. Darius looked sick. Seraphine did not comfort him. This truth was not his to be spared from. Isolde stepped closer, her silver bone form flickering. And now the beast has returned to the king. The cursed bride stands. The false Luna is bound. So tell me, thorn-marked girl, did you come to wear the crown they broke from my skull? Seraphine looked at the Luna crown. For one heartbeat she imagined it. The court forced to kneel. Merwin watching from chains. Every person who called her cursed, made to see her crowned. It would be clean, beautiful, satisfying. Too easy. She stepped back. No. Isolde's eyes narrowed. No, I did not survive their pit to climb into another shape they prepared for me. Darius looked at her. Seraphine kept her gaze on the first bride. If that crown was made from stolen choice, then placing it on my head does not heal anything. It only changes whose neck carries the weight. The chamber went silent. Then Isolde smiled. It was not gentle. It was proud, good. The broken crown cracked wider. Moon-white fire spilled out, not upward, but into the floor. The chamber walls lit with names, hundreds of them. Brides, wolves, priestesses who resisted. Guards who helped women run. Servants who hid letters. Men who died asking questions. This was not only a grave, it was a record. Darius lowered his sword. How do we end the right? Isolde's gaze cut to him. You cannot end it as king. His jaw tightened. Then how? The bride must speak before the court. The beast must stand beside her. The king must surrender the right to choose Luna by throne law. Her eyes turned to Seraphine. And you must decide whether you are brave enough to refuse both curse and crown. Seraphine's wrist burned. Above them, Merwin screamed. The chamber trembled, as if the throne hall had erupted into chaos again. Darius looked toward the stairs. They are trying to free her. Seraphine turned back to Isolde. If I speak, will the dead be released? If they are heard, and if the court refuses? Isolde's expression darkened. Then the beast will remember what it was before men taught it restraint. Darius's wolf growled inside him. Seraphine understood the choice. Truth first. Fire only if truth failed. She reached for the broken Luna crown, but did not lift it. She pressed her marked wrist against it. Moon-white flame entered her skin. The dead veils above began to howl. Darius stepped closer, alarmed. Seraphine. She met his eyes through the pain. Do not stop me. He stopped. The flame vanished. When Seraphine pulled her hand away, the thorned wolf crown mark had changed. The thorns were still there, but now one was broken open, not crowned, unbound. Isolde's form began to fade. Go, the first bride whispered. Make them hear us. The chamber door above shattered. Merwin's voice rang down the stairway. wild with fear. Kill the cursed bride before she reaches the court. Seraphine turned toward the stairs. Darius stood beside her, this time, not ahead, beside. Together, they climbed back toward the throne hall, carrying the names of every bride the pit had swallowed. The throne hall had become a court of knives. When Seraphine and Darius climbed from the sealed stairway, Merwin stood near the iron throne with one hand wrapped around the throat of the old high priestess. 3 Solis guards surrounded her with silver spears raised, while the nobles pressed back against the walls, afraid to choose the wrong side before victory showed itself. The dead veils hovered above them, like pale storm clouds. Seraphine stepped onto the black marble, the broken thorn mark burning on her wrist. Marvin saw it and went still. "What did you touch?" she whispered. "The first bride," Seraphine said. The hall fell silent. Darius stood beside her, wounded, pale, but no longer hollow. His wolf watched through his eyes now, and every alpha in the room felt it. Some bowed their heads without meaning to. Others backed away, realizing the man they had controlled by fear was gone. Merwin tightened her grip on the priestess. "One more step, and I open her throat." Seraphine looked at the trembling priestess, then at Merwin. "You are still hiding behind someone else's body." Merwin's mouth twisted. "And you are still pretending mercy makes you strong." "No," Seraphine said. "Witness does." The dead veils dropped, not onto Merwin, onto the floor. One by one, they spread across the black marble, each veil becoming a memory. The court saw the first bride, Isolde Blackthorn, forced before the wolf pit. They saw the first Alpha's council cut his beast from his body. They saw Solis women crowned as false Lunas, while thorn-marked brides vanished below. They saw Merwin signing death orders, hiding letters, poisoning men, and preparing Seraphine's fall before the wedding even began. No one could look away. The old high priestess began sobbing. "We only preserved the right." Seraphine turned to her. "You preserved murder." The priestess collapsed to her knees when Merwin shoved her away in disgust. "Enough," Merwin screamed. "Yes, brides died. Yes, the beast was separated. Yes, the right was protected. And because of that, this kingdom survived. Do you think crowns are kept clean? Do you think wolves obey because love asks nicely?" Darius stepped forward. "Wolves obeyed because they were lied to." Merwin pointed at Seraphine. "And now, you would let her decide law? A death bride? A woman whose mark woke a monster?" Seraphine felt the court's fear shift again. There it was, the old weapon, curse, monster, bride, death. She could feel how badly they wanted simple words, simple fear, simple guilt. A cursed woman was easier to understand than a kingdom built on stolen choice. So she walked to the center of the hall. Alone. Darius did not stop her. The dead veils circled above. The beast inside him growled low, but he held still. Seraphine raised her marked wrist. "I refuse the curse." The hall trembled. Merwin's eyes narrowed. Seraphine's voice grew stronger. "I refuse the crown they broke from another woman's body. I refuse to become Luna because the beast chose me. I refuse to be killed because the beast chose me. I refuse every law that turns a woman's bond into a throne's property." The mark on her wrist flared black and silver. The veils lifted high. Darius stepped beside her, not touching her, not claiming her. "And I renounce the throne's right to choose Luna by blood bargain, council right, or beast imprisonment." The court erupted. "No king can renounce that. The Luna right holds the Pax together. The Solis line will call war." Merwin smiled through the chaos. "You hear them? They will never follow this. They fear a free beast more than a false queen." Seraphine looked at the nobles. "Then let the beast choose whether to destroy you." The hall died into silence. Darius turned to her. She met his eyes. Call him forward. Pain crossed his face. If he comes out fully, I may not control him. That is the point, she said softly. His breath changed. Then he nodded. Darius closed his eyes. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then his shadow split open. The monster wolf emerged behind him, enormous and scarred, black fur smoking under moonlight. The court screamed. Guards raised spears. Merwin stumbled back, but the beast did not attack. It walked to Seraphine. The same monster they had used as executioner lowered its scarred head before the cursed bride and pressed its forehead to her hand. Seraphine looked at the court. This is what you called death. The beast turned toward the nobles. Every alpha present felt the old power in him, not madness, not curse, but a soul that had been imprisoned and still chose restraint. One by one, wolves in the hall lowered their heads. Not to Darius, not to the throne, to the bond they had been taught to fear. Merwin saw the court slipping from her. Her face twisted. She seized a fallen silver spear and drove it into the floor. Hidden runes flashed across the marble, rushing toward Seraphine's feet. Darius moved. The beast moved, but Seraphine was faster. She pressed her marked wrist to the glowing rune. Every bride you buried, she whispered. Speak. The floor exploded with names. Hundreds of them. The runes shattered beneath the weight of the dead. Merwin screamed as the veils wrapped around her, not killing her, but binding her wrists, throat, and mouth in pale silk. The beast snarled inches from her face. Seraphine lifted her hand. No. The beast stopped. The court saw it again. Not control, but choice. Darius faced the hall, blood still dark on his armor. Lady Merwin Solus will stand trial before every pack whose daughters were fed to the pit. The lunar rite is ended. The wolf pit is sealed as a grave and opened as a record. No bride, no mate, no wolf will be bound to the crown without choice. The words shook the old banners. The dead veils began to fall gently around Seraphine like snow. Merwin, bound and furious, whispered through the silk. They will still call you cursed. Seraphine looked down at her. Let them, she said. This time, they will know who taught them the word. Dawn touched the open ceiling. For the first time, the sacred wolf pit did not breathe hunger. It breathed names. By dawn, the court of Blackthorn no longer knew where to stand. The old throne hall had been built to make power look eternal. Black marble, wolf-bone pillars, iron banners. The sacred pit yawning beneath the center like a mouth the court had learned to call holy. For generations, nobles had leaned over that rail and watched condemned bodies fall. Brides, traitors, rivals. Women marked with the thorned wolf crown. Each death had been given a clean name. Judgment, curse, necessity. Now the pit was open as a grave, and the names would not stop burning. Seraphine stood at the center of the hall in torn bridal silk, the broken thorn mark glowing around her wrist. The monster wolf stood beside her, no longer hidden below. Darius stood on her other side, wounded but upright, his wolf soul partly visible behind him, like living darkness. The court could no longer separate king from beast, bride from curse, truth from the pit beneath their feet. Merwin Solus knelt bound in the dead bride's veils, her mouth finally uncovered so she could speak. She chose poison. You think names change law? She said, voice shaking with rage. The packs will tear each other apart without the lunar rite. Every noble house will deny this. Every father will hide his daughters. Every alpha will fear his own wolf. Seraphine looked at her. Good. The court stirred. Merwin blinked. Seraphine's voice carried clearly. Let them fear. Let every alpha wonder whether his power was built on a woman thrown into the dark. Let every father look at his daughter and ask whether obedience is worth her grave. Let every noble house deny it in front of the names. The dead veils rose behind her. Hundreds of names shimmered in the air. No one spoke against them. Darius turned to the high priestess, who knelt near the broken altar with ash on her face. "Bring the court record." The priestess trembled. "Your Majesty." Now, servants ran. Scribes followed. Old books were dragged from the Moon Archive and laid open across the throne steps. The pages had been cleaned, polished, rewritten by generations of careful hands. But when Seraphine stepped closer, the mark on her wrist burned. Ink began to bleed through the parchment. From beneath the official words, bride refused, became bride recognized. Beast consumed became beast chose. Curse confirmed became lunar rite protected. The whole watched the law correct itself in blood-dark ink. A noblewoman collapsed against a pillar, sobbing into her hands. "My sister's name is there." Another lord whispered, "My mother." Then another voice, older and broken, "My daughter." The truth spread faster than fear now. Merwin fought against the veils. "Do not pretend grief makes you innocent. You all watched. Your houses signed contracts. Your sons married safely because other women were fed to the pit." The words struck hard because they were true. Seraphine looked at the court. "Then witness begins with guilt." Darius nodded to the scribes. "Every house will speak its dead. Every contract tied to the lunar rite is suspended. Every family that profited from a false bond will be called before open court." A council lord stepped forward, pale but defiant. And if the Pax rebel, Darius's wolf growled through the hole. The lord flinched, but Darius did not let the beast answer for him. "Then they rebel against truth, not against me." Seraphine turned to him. That mattered. He was not using the beast to terrify them into obedience. He was letting the court see the beast could stand still, while a king chose accountability. Then, the outer doors opened. A young guard entered, face white. "Your Majesty, Solis riders have surrounded the eastern bridge. They demand Lady Merwin's release before sunrise." Merwin's eyes lit. Darius reached for his sword. Seraphine touched his arm. He stopped. She looked at the bound false Luna. "Let them in." The court erupted. Darius looked at her sharply. "Seraphine, if you fight them outside, she becomes a hostage. If you hide her, she becomes a rumor. Let her house see the pit." The monster wolf lowered its head, approving. Darius studied her for a long breath, then turned to the guard. "Open the eastern bridge. Let them enter unarmed. If they refuse, hold the gate." Merwin laughed. "My house will not walk into your theater." Seraphine looked down at her. "No, they will walk into your inheritance." The Solis riders entered at sunrise. They came in white cloaks and silver armor, proud and furious, led by Merwin's elder brother, Lord Aster Solis. He had her golden hair, her cold eyes, and the confidence of a man who believed every room could still be purchased if entered loudly enough. He stopped when he saw the pit, then the vials, then Merwin bound beneath the names of dead brides. His expression did not break. "My sister is under unlawful restraint," he said. Seraphine walked toward him alone. The monster wolf moved to follow, but she lifted one hand. It stopped. Aster's eyes flicked to the beast. Fear, disgust, calculation. "You must be the cursed bride," he said. "I am." He seemed surprised she accepted the word. Seraphine stopped before him. "Your sister says the curse is why men died around me. The pit says your house killed them." Aster's mouth tightened. "The pit is a beast's den, not a witness." Seraphine lifted her marked wrist. "Then step into it." The hall went silent. Aster stared at her. She pointed to the stairs descending into the sacred pit. "If your house is innocent, stand below the names. Say before the dead brides that Solis did not create the false lunar rite." Aster did not move. Merwin whispered, "Brother." The whisper betrayed her more than fear would have. Aster's face hardened. "You do not understand what we prevented." Seraphine stepped closer. "Then explain it from the pit." He struck her. The sound cracked through the hall. Darius moved, like death. But before he reached Asta, the monster wolf appeared between them, jaws open, eyes blazing. Asta stumbled back, suddenly pale. Seraphine touched her split lip. Blood warmed her fingers. The mark on her wrist flared. The dead veils rose in a storm. Every bride's voice spoke at once. Witness. The black marble under Asta's feet cracked, and the names of the first soulless priestesses burned around him like a cage. Darius stood beside Seraphine, shaking with restraint. "Your house has chosen public trial," he said. Asta reached for his sword. The beast growled. Asta's own guards stepped back. Not all. Enough. Seraphine looked at Merwin. For the first time, the false Luna looked truly afraid. Not of death, but of watching her house abandon her, now that she could no longer protect them. Seraphine felt no joy in it. Only the old exhaustion of women used as walls until the men behind them found another exit. She faced the court. "The pit will not be fed again." Darius lifted his sword and drove it into the black marble at the edge of the pit. The stone split from railing to floor. The sacred beast pit cracked open, not into darkness now, but into the hidden chamber of records beneath it. Veils, rings, names, vows, and buried testimonies rose into full daylight. The court saw everything. The Solis riders saw everything. And by sunrise, the first noble house knelt not to the Alpha King, but to the brides it had buried. The first noble house knelt to the buried brides, and the kingdom felt the old law break. It did not break loudly. No thunder came from the sky. No moon split above the throne hall. No army of ghosts rose to drag the guilty into the dark. The old law broke in a quieter way, more frightening to those who had lived by it. Men who had never lowered their eyes began to look at the floor. Women who had been trained to smile through fear began to speak names. Guards who had once thrown condemned brides into the pit now stepped away from the railing, as if the stone itself had become accusation. Seraphine stood at the edge of the broken wolf pit with blood on her lip, torn bridal silk around her body, and the thorned wolf crown glowing at her wrist. Below, the hidden chamber of records lay open to daylight. Veils drifted through the air. Rings circled slowly above the cracked marble. Names burned where no hand could erase them. Merwin Solis knelt bound in pale bridal silk, no longer the perfect Luna candidate. Her brother Asta stood trapped inside the ring of names, his sword fallen from his hand, his face emptied of certainty. The Solis riders behind him looked from the pit to the veils to the old records, and one by one, their pride began to rot into fear. Darius Blackthorn stood beside Seraphine, wounded but unbowed. His wolf was no longer trapped below, but its scars remained under his skin. The monster form hovered behind him like a shadow made of black fur and old rage, visible enough for every alpha to see that the king had not conquered it. He had accepted it. That frightened the court more than any roar. The high priestess was dragged before the broken pit, shaking beneath her moon robes. Darius looked down at her, without mercy. "Read the first record," he said. Her mouth trembled. "Your Majesty." "Read it." The priestess opened the oldest book with shaking hands. The page was cracked with age. Its ink had turned dark red, where the dead bride's mark burned beneath it. "Isolde Blackthorn," she whispered. "First, thorn-marked bride. Recognized by the beast. Declared death. Cursed by council order. Offered to the pit to preserve crown stability." The throne hall went still. Darius's jaw tightened. "Continue." The priestess sobbed as she read name after name. Brides declared cursed. Brides called dangerous. Brides sent below. Men murdered for asking questions. Families lied to. Rings broken. Records rewritten. The court listened until listening became its own punishment. Seraphine did not look away. She owed the dead that much. When the final name was read, Darius turned to the court. "The lunar rite is ended," he said. "The wolf pit is no longer a place of judgment. It will remain open as a record until every house has answered for the names beneath it." A council lord lifted his head. "The packs will fracture." Darius's wolf growled once. The lord lowered his gaze. But Darius did not let the beast finish the argument. "Then they will fracture around truth instead of kneeling around lies." Seraphine looked at him. There was blood on his armor, pain in his face, guilt in the way he would not allow himself to stand too close to her. He had refused her, sent her to the pit, believed the court before he believed the woman placed before him as bride. One night of truth did not erase that, but he was no longer hiding behind the throne. That mattered. Merwin laughed weakly from her bindings. "You think this makes her safe?" Every eye turned to her. She looked at Seraphine with hatred stripped of elegance. "You think they will love you because the dead spoke? They will fear you more now. Cursed bride. Beast mate. Pit witness. No crown will make that clean." Seraphine walked toward her. The beast behind Darius stirred, but Seraphine lifted one hand. It stopped. She stood before Merwin and looked at the woman who had tried to bury her in the same dark that swallowed so many others. "I do not need them to love me today," Seraphine said. "I need them to remember tomorrow." Merwin's smile faded. Seraphine turned to the guards. "Take her to the East Tower, not the pit, not a hidden cell. Somewhere with windows. Somewhere the court can see she is alive until trial." Darius watched her carefully. "You spare her?" he asked. "No," Seraphine said. "I deny her the story she wanted." Merwin's face twisted. The guards took her away, bound in the veils of the women her house had erased. Asta Solis was seized next. The Solis riders did not fight. Too many had sisters, mothers, daughters. Too many had finally seen how easily a house could call a woman cursed when it needed her silent. By midday, the throne hall had changed shape. The iron rail around the wolf pit was torn down. Scribes filled the court floor, copying the names of the dead brides. Families lined up to speak the names they had been told to forget. The high priestess was stripped of her crescent crown. The soulless banners were removed from beside the throne and laid before the pit as evidence, not honor. Seraphine stayed through all of it. She stood barefoot in ruined bridal silk. No longer an offering, no longer a secret, no longer a curse the court could use without consequence. When mothers came forward weeping, she listened. When fathers broke under the weight of names they had believed were shameful, she listened. When young girls looked at the mark on her wrist with fear and wonder, she did not hide it. Darius did not sit on the throne, not once. He stood below it, among the records, wounded side-bound with dark cloth, wolf watchful in his eyes. When nobles came to him demanding order, he pointed them to the names. When they asked when the court would return to tradition, he said, "When tradition can answer without blood." At dusk, after the last witness was heard for the day, Seraphine returned to the pit. The chamber below was quiet now. No hunger breathed from it. No beast waited in the dark. Only veils, rings, names, and the first bride's broken lunar crown resting on the altar where it had been found. Darius came to the edge, but did not descend. Seraphine looked up at him. "Are you afraid I will leave?" His answer came after a long silence. "Yes." The honesty struck her harder than denial would have. She climbed the steps slowly, until they stood on the same level, moonlight falling between them. "You do not get to ask me to stay because your wolf called me mate," she said. "I know. You do not get forgiveness because you bled for me. I know. You do not get to turn my survival into your redemption." His face tightened with pain, but he did not look away. "I know." Seraphine searched his eyes. The beast was there now, scarred and alive, but it did not reach for her. Neither did the king. "Good. What will you do?" he asked. She looked back at the pit, then at the court beyond it, where the names of the dead still glowed. "I will stay until the trials are done," she said, "until every bride is named, until every false rite is broken, until no woman can be thrown into that pit and called cursed, because men fear what her bond reveals." Darius bowed his head. "And after?" Her fingers brushed the mark on her wrist. It no longer burned like a wound. It felt heavy, but hers. "After," she said. "You may ask me again." The beast inside him lowered its head. So did Darius, not as a king accepting victory, as a man learning to wait. Night fell over Blackthorn. The pit remained open under moonlight, no longer sacred, no longer hungry. A grave, a record, a warning. The court had gathered to watch a cursed bride die. Instead, they watched the beast refuse to kill her. They watched the Alpha King bleed for the woman he had rejected. They watched dead brides speak, false Luna power fall, and an old throne learn that no mate bond, no crown, no sacred rite could be holy without choice. Seraphine Vale entered Blackthorn as a bride marked for death. By dawn, the pit remembered her name.